From around the world today, from the Soviet Union, from the nations of the West, from China, there were expressions on concern for America's loss. And as Bob Simon reports, in this country, grief spoke in one voice.
The Air and Space Museum in Washington is something of a cathedral to space exploration.
Something went terribly wrong with the Shuttle Challenger this morning.
And people dropped by today as if they were going to church. It was the right place to be.
It's frightening.
It was just awful. Just awful.
It had been an age of heroes, of pioneers. That's how it started. But then it became so routine, blastoffs weren't even carried live on television anymore. The shuttles were called bus trips into space, and anybody could ride them, even a high school teacher. It just didn't seem heroic anymore.
Sometimes there were delays, but it had even gotten boring. Then in a flash, the shuttle chariot was swallowed in its own sun.
For America, it became a death in the family. For a senator who had flown in a shuttle.
I don't know of any time that I have been more shocked or more moved than when my first wife was killed in an automobile accident.
For some, there was only one point of comparison.
I think the last time I felt like that was when Kennedy was shot.
And like that day, an explosion was followed by silence. The nation stopped from Main Street to Wall Street.
We saw it come over the Dow Jones News, and the entire trading floor was just at a loss of words. Everything stopped trading.
I thought it was terrible. I was shocked. I was in tears. I couldn't believe it.
And then there was somehow that added poignancy because there was a teacher. It reminded us all.
It was the first one that was going to be able to really convey to us what it was going to be like on the space shuttle, and she never had a chance.
The bells of the National Cathedral tolled this afternoon for the dead. They were not all astronauts or pilots. They were women. They were Vietnam veterans. There were a black and an Oriental. There was even a man named Smith. They were American. Bob Simon, CBS News, Washington.
Good roll program confirmed.
Recapping briefly the tragedy of Space Shuttle Challenger, all 7 on board the billion-dollar craft, including the first public citizen, a schoolteacher, were killed in the gush of flame that engulfed it moments after liftoff. No one yet knows why. And so tonight for our nation, death in the family. Once again, the horror unfolding before our eyes. But the fire this time came not from the quest for revenge from the point of a gun or a bomb, but the quest for knowledge, the point of knowing what's out there and what we can do there in space. Even as our own robot eyes and ears beam back knowledge from the very edges of our solar system and beyond, even as we try to see Halley's Comet for the first time as gases and ice formations from the beginning of time, instead of an omen, even as we take our first tetherless walks in space, we did it then and they did it today because humans want to see and to hear, need to see and to hear and to feel, to be there. 7 searchers died today, doing what astronauts do, doing what a good teacher does, expanding what is in the realm of the known, pushing the edge of the envelope, full out, full throttle, reaching for the sky. That's the CBS Evening News this Tuesday, until our special broadcast on the tragedy of Space Shuttle Challenger tonight at 10 o'clock, 9 Central Time, Dan Rather, CBS News, New York.
This is CBS.
Here in the nation's capital and across the country. And this is why. The picture is now etched in our minds, but still horrifying. The disastrous end of the 25th shuttle mission. The sudden death of 7 astronauts, 5 men and 2 women, including the first teacher in space. Americans once again reaching for the stars, and this time the first time not making it. That is why the nation's flags are at half-staff tonight.
This is an ABC News special. The Shuttle, Disaster in Space. Reporting from Washington, here is Peter Jennings.
What we're going to try to do in the next hour is to put this national tragedy in some sort of context. The nation has lost 7 explorers. Ever since the manned space program began a quarter of a century ago with people like Alan Shepard and John Glenn, the astronauts, in one way or another, have seemed to belong to the nation. We do not know exactly what happened up there, 10 miles above Cape Canaveral this morning, but we will talk to other astronauts about what might have gone wrong. We certainly know what happened here on Earth. The shock and the sorrow has been truly international in scope. And so we'll talk, besides to just plain folks, to politicians, including Senator Jake Garn, who's been on the shuttle, and to James Michener, who so effectively captured the space program in his book. But we're going to begin with those who, to say it again, we have all lost. Here's ABC's Stone Phillips.
They were America's crew, men and women, veterans and first-timers, parents and even a classical pianist. They came from Akron and Detroit, Boston and the Carolinas. They were pilots and engineers and a teacher, and they were young. The oldest would have turned 47 in May. What they shared was a pioneer spirit, a passion for adventure, and a belief that man's discoveries in space can help solve problems on Earth. Their leader was Commander Dick Scobie, age 46, making his second journey into space. He became an astronaut in 1979 after 22 years in the Air Force. He saw combat duty in Vietnam, won the Flying Cross and Distinguished Air Medal, and later, as a test pilot, logged more than 5,300 hours in dozens of experimental aircraft. Born and raised in Washington State, Scobie is survived by his wife June and 2 children. A few months ago, he returned to his high school to share his enthusiasm for space.
He really wanted to interact with the kids. It was okay to talk to the adults, but his whole purpose of coming back was to deal with the kids and maybe give them some sort of a message or a goal.
Second in command was pilot Michael Smith, a 40-year-old commander in the U.S. Navy on his first shuttle mission. Like Scobie, he had served as a pilot in Vietnam, been decorated, and gone on to train as a test pilot. He was selected as an astronaut in 1980. He was married and the father of 3, and close to Senator and former astronaut Jake Garn.
Well, it's very difficult for me to talk about it because these were my friends. Mike Smith, the pilot, was my mother hen the first month that I trained. They assigned him to me, go to my classes and help brief me. And I don't know of any time that I have been more shocked or more moved than when my first wife was killed in an automobile accident.
39-year-old Ellison Onizuka was Hawaii's first astronaut. His hometown honored him with a traditional parade before he left for astronaut training. Onizuka was also a husband and father, seen here with his 2 girls. Before turning astronaut, he taught at the elite Air Force Test Pilot School in California, and as chief of engineering there, was responsible for all instrumental and flight testing modifications on highly experimental jet aircraft. For Onizuka, a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, the exploration of space was a way to serve man's more immediate needs.
There are a lot of outcomes from these projects which will affect both our society and the rest of the world.
36-year-old Judy Resnick from Akron was on her second mission. Her specialty, electrical engineering, her assignment to operate the shuttle's mechanical arm. On her first mission, she used the device successfully to help remove ice from the outside of the orbiter. It was also on that mission in 1984 when the shuttle Discovery aborted takeoff moments after the engines had been fired. Resnick later expressed confidence in the shuttle's safety systems.
After it all happened, we were all very grateful that the safety features do what they're supposed to do on the orbiter, and I think that the system has been designed such that anything that could present a problem will be taken care of by these safety features.
When Resnick wasn't flying, she sometimes doubled as a commentator, helping bring to life for television viewers what it was like to take off on board the shuttle.